YouTube preppers. This is going to be a special treat where we take an analysis forward to spring of 2023, particularly around tax time. We have a few things that are going to be making this a special year. We don't just have the elections and all that might still be. We know we had some election tensions from last 2 years ago that are still having issues. This is only midterms, but this isn't really so much about the elections as it is certain changes of law and human nature, the way it's been for a very long time, just the way people have been. And these are my calculations and conclusions on this. I haven't really seen anyone else coming to these conclusions or calculations, and hopefully I'm off. And usually I'm probably a little bit more concerned than I need to be about some of these things. So I'm sure it will be a bit less than what I've analyzed on here, but I just figured I'd give the whole thing so that way you can make your own decisions on what you should be expecting. I'll explain what I came up to and why. Alright, so this is really looking particularly at tax closeout season and why this is special. Why is it the same? Why is it special? And why is that a bad mixture? This is like oil and gas. We don't like this. So the things that have been happening lately that will be affecting this event, many people minimize their taxes. They figure that if they took cash, they don't report it. If they took in yard sale money, if they don't think that the IRS knows about it, they don't report it. And in turn, they have a bit of surprise coming up, because this year the IRS is having all of those Cash App and all those other platforms that people have been using to get around their taxes for a long time. They're now going to get 1099s on those. And a lot of people don't pay attention to these rules that they change. So they're not aware of the changes, and most people procrastinate. They're going to file their taxes. Ask any tax person, the busiest time is in April for taxes. They charge more for it. They make bank then. People, this is when most people make their way to their taxes. So they're going to find out that they all of a sudden have to owe this extra thing when they haven't even looked at their paperwork probably until they go on over there. And the IRS has never allowed, to my knowledge, any extensions to pay. They will allow an extension to file, and there are certain extensions that are automatic on the extensions to file, especially if you don't owe them. But if you owe them, you had to have paid it by April 15th. They don't have extensions to pay. I think during COVID they gave an extension on that. That was a different thing. They gave a 6-month extension to everybody. But that was an exception to the rule. On this case, I'm not expecting that. And the IRS is now more bold than ever before. They now have their own armed police force out there. Not very well trained, but it doesn't matter because their old techniques are still in force with the law. So it doesn't matter if they don't know how to handle a firearm, if they don't know the barrel from the handle. It doesn't matter, because they still have the ability to freeze all your assets and cause all kinds of desperation for you and cause you to lose everything you have. They can still seize everything that you have, jump ahead of every other debt and everything else. So these things are kind of a perfect storm, I feel, for things that will be happening there, where people will suddenly get desperate to get the additional amounts that they owe, because now they have an IRS that's emboldened, more emboldened than ever before, to come on over here and get their money from these people that now owe. And a lot of times, they filed it in April, so they've got a week to get especially if they were doing a lot of stuff, if they were going out to flea markets and that's how they made most of their living, and they made, $50,000 in a year selling odds and ends, this is bad news for them. Now they all of a sudden have to come up with taxes on $50,000 in a week. So these people are going to get desperate. They've got an armed, emboldened IRS out there to collect this. So I'm expecting that there would be an increase in financial crimes, dealing with anything from fraud, theft, burglaries, robberies, stuff like that, whatever they can do. Expect if somebody can take money from somebody, there's a better chance that it's going to happen there than it has been already. And I've been seeing a large amount of that happen in the world already. So I can only expect, now I don't know that there's too many people that are going to have massive amounts. So I don't think it's going to be everybody that's going to get so desperate. But the few that do get desperate, they're going to be very desperate. And they're going to make up for the majority that don't have massive amounts. There's going to be some that are going to have small amounts. And some of these guys here, they're going to be out there trying to rip off whoever they can. Trying to get, fraud, theft, burglaries, robberies, whatever they can get to get the money that they can. These are more dangerous times to be around things of value, to be in places where valuables are, places where money is kept. It's a more dangerous time to visit your bank. If you can handle your banking business outside of this window, I'd recommend that. And so also in turn, from part of this being financial and part of this just straight being revenge in general, as people are robbed, as the police gets overwhelmed possibly by this, there's going to be more people that are going to just say, well, cops aren't going to do anything. I'll go over there and, I don't know, slash his tires or burn down something of his or whatever it be. There's going to be more people probably doing revenge crimes during that time, such as vandalism, arson, assaults, maybe even homicides, and possibly even acts of terrorism and things like that. So I'm not expecting like major acts of terrorism, but I'm not expecting like another 9/11 or something like that. But it could be something where, somebody gets mad and, I don't know, builds a bomb and uses it, or maybe just calls in a bomb threat, or whatever it be. But some of this stuff is going to be motivated by revenge. Either, some of it's going to be because they're angry because of these new regulations, and some of it is going to be angry because someone robbed them, or angry because someone owes them and hasn't paid them, or whatever it might be. So there may be a number more of these revenge type crimes that could occur during this time. So things that you can do to prepare for this event. Right now we're looking at this being about 5 to 6 months away from the time of the creation of this video. So there are times that you can, if you are in a position where, or if you come across a position where you end up in a crossroads with your work, you might consider being positioned outside the warpath if you can get there. I wouldn't necessarily just totally quit your job if you're already used to it and comfortable with it and like it. But if you're already thinking, hey, I don't like my job and I'd rather have something, you might consider these concepts when you're thinking about this. Getting positioned outside the warpaths. When people get frustrated, say, with a computer, when they're losing a computer game here, and when there's somebody, this isn't everybody, but this is certain people, when they go to beat on a computer, most of the time they don't beat on the box that's actually doing the computation. They oftentimes beat on the monitor. People beat the messenger. And this is where the warpaths are a little bit obscured. So government agencies in general, this could be the welfare office. This could be somebody who's handing out the money that gets attacked because the person is thinking government. Could be even a security official because they got an official uniform. They have a position of authority, and therefore that could be something that somebody would be more inclined to target if they're looking to do one of these types of crimes that I'm expecting more to see a bit more of. So things of security, government, law enforcement, any of that type of stuff would be more inclined to be a target by various individuals. Financial, anything here dealing with where money is or money's being dispensed, credit card providers, that's somebody might owe and might be needing to make a payment to them, and they could get ugly about that payment while the person is trying to come up with this money that they desperately owe the IRS, and they could get very upset with that. And so that could make a financial institution a target during that time as well. Any type of place of supply, such as grocery stores, gas stations, stuff like that, could be more something which somebody would, that would be probably more financially motivated than the revenge targets, but they would be more inclined to be robbed, I would think, because they could take that and they could fence that off and maybe make some of that. And any other place that's known to store valuables. So an armored car driver is probably what you don't want to be. You don't want to be security watching a warehouse full of cash during this time. And if you're thinking that you're going to go into this because it's going to be very needed and they're going to pay you bank to do it when this stuff happens, I don't believe they will ever be paid extra for this risk. Because they are going to look at this, the bosses, the media is going to try and spin this off as a bunch of one-offs. Oh, this is just some other robbery. We've had, maybe we've seen an uptick of robberies, but these are all not connected. They're not going to try to connect them. And they're not going to try to say, okay, there's an elevated danger here, and we should be paying these people that, because they can pocket that money, and that's been the history, that people will do that. People will pocket that money. They will not pass it on to where it rightfully belongs. So don't expect an extra paycheck if you're going to go out and work as a policeman or something like that during that time. That's, if you want to be a hero and you're willing to put your life on the line and you don't need to get paid anything extra for it, props to you. But if you are worried about the elevated risk of these events happening, that's the areas that I expect elevation for these crimes during that time. And be vigilant during that time, because, the time here that you may have, your odds of having your purse snatched or being robbed or anything else before that is probably not as great as it will be during that time. That's more of your time, if you've oftentimes been sloppy about carrying your handgun, for self-defense, or you've just been, not paying attention to your surroundings. This is a time to just pay more attention. If you are in a position of security or something like that too, this is a time to dot your I's, cross your T's. If you're in law enforcement, dot your I's, cross your T's during this time. Pay extra attention so that way you can hopefully stop as much of this as you can and get yourself out of harm's way if this stuff is going to come to you. Hopefully none of this stuff goes anywhere. Hopefully I'm wrong about all this. I would love to be. But I'm just seeing the writing as it is, and I just feel like it's something to mention, and you can make up your own decisions on this. But I would also consider your own security in the field and at home. When you go to the store at that time, during that time, I do intend to increase my alert level. I'm going to be doing a lot more staging and carrying of things than I normally would during that time period. And if you can avoid it, avoid being in those warpaths, of a financial institution. Try to make your banking business another time. If you can stockpile your groceries for that 2 weeks, especially during the first part of April is the biggest time that I'm most concerned about it. But if you can avoid going out during that time, going out to especially any of these places, it's probably wise. If you can avoid government offices during that time, if you can handle that business early, if you can handle it later than that, that would be wise. If you can avoid financial institutions, handle your banking early, handle your next one later than you normally would. Try to avoid that window. Not just not working there, but try to not be in there. Consider watching more what's going on around you. Consider, carrying your gear more. Consider your home security. Consider setting that alarm every time you leave. You may have been sloppy about it beforehand, but you want to be more vigilant. You want to consider your security more during that time period, because I think there's going to be a lot more crimes that get reported during that time. And I think they're not going to be reported accurately. They're not going to be reported as, oh, these are a series of, this is a string that's related to one type of motive. They're not going to bring that up, I don't think. So just things to consider. You take up your own consideration on what you feel is right for you to consider and do, and it's just food for thought. Thank you for watching.